When we think of ancient Egypt, we imagine pyramids, endless desert, and pharaohs, kings believed to be living gods. But behind the monuments, behind the myths, there is one question historians still debate today. Who was the most powerful pharaoh in Egyptian history? Power is a dangerous word. Does it mean conquering the most land, having the greatest wealth, building the largest temples? Or does power mean controlling how history remembers you long after you are gone? If we judge only by stone and statues, we risk misunderstanding the truth. Because history is not written by strength alone. It is written by how power is used and how it is remembered. So, in this documentary, we will not look for one simple answer. Instead, we will explore 4 different forms of power. Military power, political and economic dominance, hidden power overlooked by history, and finally, the power of image and propaganda. And the first name we must begin with is the man many historians call the Napoleon of ancient Egypt. Thutmose III did not begin his reign as a powerful ruler. When he ascended the throne, real power belonged to someone else. Hatshepsut, the female pharaoh. For years, Thutmose III ruled only in name. He lived in her shadow, but that shadow shaped him. When Thutmose III finally ruled alone, he did not rely on speeches. He did not rely on divine symbolism. He relied on war. Over nearly 20 years of independent rule, he led at least 17 military campaigns, south into Nubia, north into the Levant, modern Syria, and Canaan. His most famous victory, the Battle of Megiddo, is considered the earliest recorded battle in human history, not because it was the largest, but because it revealed something rare for its time. Strategy. Thutmose III chose the most dangerous route, a narrow mountain pass, and struck directly at the heart of the enemy alliance. The risk worked. The enemy collapsed. In a single decisive engagement, under Thutmose III, Egypt reached its greatest territorial extent ever. But conquest was only the beginning. Victory became control. Tribute flowed into Egypt. Foreign princes were taken as political hostages. Local kings ruled, only with Egypt's permission. This was not chaos. This was an empire. Interestingly, Thutmose III was not obsessed with image. He did not fill Egypt with colossal statues of himself. At Karnak, he is shown not as a god, but as a commander, precise, disciplined, unforgiving. If power means expanding borders, crushing resistance, and forcing the world to submit, then Thutmose III stands almost without equal. But military power has limits. Empires are built with armies, but sustained by something else. To understand power at its most complete, we must now turn to a very different kind of ruler. If Thutmose III built an empire with the sword, then the next ruler inherited that empire at its absolute peak. Amenhotep III is not remembered for great wars because he did not need them. His reign marks the wealthiest, most stable, and most powerful era in all of Egyptian history. Gold from Nubia flowed endlessly into Thebes. Tribute from foreign kings arrived year after year. Instead of sending armies abroad, Amenhotep III used diplomacy, marriage, and symbolism. He married princesses from Mitanni, Babylon, and Hatti. Other great powers did not fear Egypt. They aligned with it. Not because Egypt threatened war, but because Egypt set the order of the ancient world. Amenhotep III built temples not to glorify conquest, but to communicate a message. The world was stable because Egypt ruled it. The Colossi of Memnon do not show a warrior. They show a king seated, unmoving, absolute. If power means no wars to fight, yet no rivals to challenge you, no need to expand, yet no one able to surpass you, then Amenhotep III represents total power perfected. But history carries a paradox. The more stable an empire becomes, the easier it is for the next generation to break it. After this golden age, Egypt began to weaken, until another king appeared, quiet, disciplined, and determined to restore what was lost. Seti I is rarely called great, Wanchi called no colossal statues, ndoti, no famous legends. Yet when we look closer, Seti I may be one of the most important kings Egypt ever had. When Seti came to the throne, Egypt had lost territory. Its authority was weakened. Its borders were unstable. And Seti did something history rarely celebrates. He repaired the system. He reconquered Canaan, pushed back the Hittites from key regions, restored discipline to the army and order to administration. No exaggeration. No theatrical victories. The Temple of Abydos, built by Seti I, is considered one of the most refined monuments in Egypt. Not the largest, but the most precise. Seti I did not build a legend. He built a foundation. And upon that foundation stood his son, Ramses II. Without Seti I, there would be no Ramses the Great. But history remembers those who stand in the spotlight, not those who build the stage. Seti I may not be the most famous pharaoh, but he may be one of the strongest in practical reality. And here, the nature of power begins to change again, not through conquest, not through stability, but through something far more enduring. Image, narrative, propaganda. If Seti I built the foundation, then his successor stood fully in the spotlight of history. Ramses II is the name most people recognize when they think of ancient Egypt. Not because he conquered the most land, not because he was the richest king, but because he understood the power of image. Ramses II ruled for more than 60 years. During that time, he filled Egypt with statues of himself, larger than life, placed everywhere. His name was carved more frequently than any pharaoh before him. The Battle of Kadesh, a battle with no clear military victory, was retold by Ramses as a glorious triumph. The same story, repeated again and again on temple walls across Egypt, not to convince his enemies, but to convince history itself. Ramses II also signed the earliest recorded international peace treaty. Yet that achievement is rarely remembered. What endures is the image. Abu Simbel. Colossal statues, a king carved into eternity. If power means making future generations believe you were the greatest, then Ramses II won completely. He may not have been the strongest pharaoh in reality, but he redefined what greatness looks like in human memory. And that is a different kind of power. So in the end, who was the most powerful pharaoh? The answer depends on how you define power. If power is military conquest, expanding an empire by force, then Thutmose III stands without equal. If power is total dominance, wealth, stability, and absolute authority, then Amenhotep III reached the highest point. If power is real capability, repairing a weakened empire and preparing the future, then Seti I cannot be ignored. And if power is controlling how history remembers you, then Ramses II is the final victor. Ancient Egypt was not built by a single kind of ruler. It was shaped by different forms of power at different moments in time. And perhaps that is why this civilization still fascinates us today, because power can fade, but the story of power can last forever.